Hey everybody, welcome, and thank you for listening to this episode of Marriage Therapy Radio. Merry Christmas for all who celebrate, and happy holidays if you don't celebrate Christmas. This episode comes out right before Christmas. We're talking to Dana Che and Sean Williams, and we get into a conversation about Christmas and what does it mean and how does it work and what's it for. And I don't know, I always like talking theology, even maybe the theology of relationships with people, because it's exciting and it's expansive and it helps us open our minds to ideas that we hadn't thought of before. Dana and Sean were great conversation partners. They have a lot of insight into how community works, how their faith informs their marriage, and I really enjoyed listening to them. I also really enjoyed talking to anyone who's from my neck of the woods. They live in Virginia, quite near where I went to college, so that was fun to reminisce about that a little bit. I think you're going to dig them. This is a very cool conversation. Stick around. Who are Dana and Sean, and how did you meet? What's your story? Where'd you come from?
You're the talker.
I'm going to get you to talk too, Sean. Don't fret.
You might have to pull a little bit. So Sean and I actually met as little kids. We went to the same church. We had a small church, and our families went to the church together. And then, so we were I was 5, maybe he was 8. And then his family left. So our church had like a couple of church splits. And so his family left, and they went to another church. So we really didn't have a lot of interaction for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then, or maybe longer, we ended up reconnecting in high school. And so he's 3 years older than me. So he's actually the same age and grade as my older sister. So I, for years, just saw him as my sister's friend. And then when we got to high school, we reconnected as friends first, and then started a relationship my sophomore year and his senior year in high school.
Right.
Do you remember each other as children? Like, do you remember each other as like 3, 5, 7 years old?
I do.
He remembers me. He has this crazy story that he likes to tell himself, but go ahead and tell your little story.
I won't put you out there like that. But I do remember her, Sunshine Girl. She had a big forehead.
That's what they used to call me because of my...
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if you want me to tell it, I would tell it. But, yeah.
I want you to tell it.
One day we went over... I was playing out in the neighborhood and went over there see her sister for something, and Dana.
How old are you at this time?
Door. I mean, how? Let me see. I would have to say maybe. I want to say 12, 11, 12. I don't know, 13, somewhere 13 around that time.
No, that would have been too old because you said I was little.
I don't know what. I can't even remember the age.
Like 8 or 9.
Okay,
but she came to the door and said, "I have to tell you a secret." I was like, "Okay." And she kissed me on the cheek and ran off. And so,
you don't know this? Do you know this story?
I have no recollection. But I will say that I did like to kiss boys at a young age, and so it could have happened. It could have happened.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah.
I just think, like, I have this pet theory that I'm wondering about, which is that by the time we're in 4th grade, we've sort of figured out who we are. So, I think consciousness begins around 4th grade. So, if I asked you about your childhood. What's interesting about your childhood is that you share it at some level. Like, do you know who you were then in a way that is also true of you now? Like, are there versions of this story that you have from elementary school or from your childhood that you can say, oh yeah, and that's still true right now? Like, do you still like to kiss boys?
Not boys. I would say just one boy.
Just one.
That's a good question. You're trying to get me in trouble here, Zach.
Right on.
I do, though. I think the person that I remember, I have lots of good childhood memories of who I was. I think I was a go-getter. So obviously, if I wanted this boy and kissed him on the cheek, that's why I'm like, it could have happened. Like that feels on brand for who I was at that age. But I think I have always been a go-getter. I've not been afraid to go after what I want. I've always been pretty confident, even though I had a pretty dysfunctional childhood. But for some reason, it was almost like I was able to kind of separate what was going on in my home from who I was as a person. And I've always been just optimistic, joyful. I'm still that way today. So I think there are a lot of things from my childhood that are still true about me today.
Yeah. What do you think, Sean?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I grew up with a single mom, so I don't know if I could say that about. Because I really started to figure myself out as an adult as I got older after therapy and different things. So I I can't really say I agree, but I don't disagree, because I do remember some things I was happy, fun, kind of like I am now.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it can be true, but it was just, I didn't really figure myself out until later on in life that I could understand it.
If you'll indulge my theory for a little bit longer, like I like to ask or imagine, do you remember what you were doing during recess? Like in fourth grade, what were you doing? Were you off in the corner? Were you in the middle of all the stuff playing? Were you leading the games? Were you just kind of bookworming with the teacher? Like who were you during recess in fourth grade?
I was an athlete. I was playing whatever sport there was, having fun running around.
Yeah.
That was me.
So are you in that now, or is that you too now? Like where you're in the middle of the action and joining, being the team player in whatever context is available to you?
I'm a team player, but I'm not the first to jump in the middle of the action unless I need to.
Okay. Okay. Do you know who you were?
For me,
on
I
the
was
playground?
definitely bossing all the kids around on the playground. I was a leader. So you guys were going to play my game and you're going to play it the way that I want the game to be played.
Huh?
But I had friends. I was not that annoying,
that doesn't make
that nobody wanted to play with. I think
the playground needs that person.
Right. Every leader every line needs a leader. And I was definitely going to be the line leader.
Are you still the same way now? Yes.
I think I've softened though. Like, I think, you mature and you realize it's not your world, like other people have an opinion. Other people have an opinion and their opinion matters just as much as yours does. I think I'm that way.
Yeah. All right. So you guys meet, you kind of reconnect in later adolescence. And is that the beginning of now? Is it from that point on you were together?
Pretty much. I mean, we got together. Now, Sean, like I said, was a couple of grades before me. So when he graduated from high school, he went off into the military. I'm a sophomore, and so I didn't. We had a couple breakups because I was not going to do a long distance relationship at 15 years old. Sure. So how high school relationships are. You break up, you get back together, you break up. But we got back together for good during my senior year, and we knew we wanted to get married, but I was very ambitious. I was going to graduate college, at high school at 17, graduate college at 20. Like I had my whole plan, I had a scholarship to college. My whole life was mapped out. And we got pregnant my first semester of college. So I was 17 years old and we find out that we're pregnant. And so that definitely shifted the whole timeline and everything. And so we got married super early. I was 18, he was 21 when we got married. And I think that was probably the beginning of this major detour that our lives took in not the greatest of directions.
Okay. And where are you? You're currently in Virginia Beach, but at this point, where do you guys live, or where would you based out of?
I don't know if you're familiar with Murfreesboro, North Carolina. It's a little tiny town about... Yeah, it's about an hour and a half outside of Virginia Beach, so not super far.
Okay. So same general area, you're North Carolina kind of based in. And then you're talking about a major detour. What's the major detour? I mean, you got pregnant or you had a baby, but what are you talking about when you reference that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just weren't ready. You don't know yourself at 18. You don't know anything about marriage for sure at 18. And we both had, there were, I think, people on both sides. Like we went to a very strict church that was kind of like, if you get pregnant, you have to get married, which I think is terrible advice. But what are we going to do? We're 18 and, we trust these folks that are telling us this. And so I think getting married so young and not really knowing ourselves, also not having dealt with any of the trauma that we had dealt with as children. So we were broken, very much broken. And of course, you link two broken people together, you're going to start to have challenges and brokenness right away. And that's what happened. So, pretty much from the onset of our marriage, we started having all the issues, like every issue that you can imagine was present.
How do you think about that, Sean? Like, you're nodding your head. Like, what's your perception or memory of that time?
She's on point. I mean, because like we had people in our lives that told us that we had to get married. And, one person even told me if I don't get married this time, I wouldn't be able to see my child. So I was like, okay. I mean, I don't really have a choice at this matter. I have because I want to be in my child's life. So definitely wasn't ready at that time. Didn't know anything about it. Didn't have the real father figure to teach me, talk to me about marriage. So my mom ended up getting married when I was, I think, 11. And, so it was later on, I already had established kind of my life. And, I didn't even take their last name, because, I mean, my stepfather was great, but I just didn't at the time because he wasn't there all the way growing up. So, I mean, then once, like I said, we got married and not knowing anything, not knowing what to do. Only thing I ever saw was what my uncles did. My uncles were players, they had multiple girlfriends, multiple this. And so that's what I thought you were supposed to do, and that's all I saw in the military. So doing that into a marriage, and then that, of course, I just kind of followed that path, and it just wasn't good. And then not knowing much about money, not knowing any of that stuff, it was a struggle at first, and I'm really blessed to say we're still together, 20 at year 26. So
yeah, particularly if you didn't start off with a very solid foundation. Are you still in relationship with the church, like not the specific church, but you still have a faith background that is part of your life?
Absolutely. I'm a teaching pastor at our church that we attend now. And I think for me, even as a little child, I was able, because we grew up in a pretty strict church, and it wasn't abusive or any of that. It was just they were by the letter. And I think there were some things that even as a child that I discerned that weren't right. So I was able to kind of separate from like what they taught and what I believed. And I think that protected me somewhat. But in this situation, obviously with the church being like, you have to get married,
yeah,
I felt like
totally.
that was the right thing to do. So thankfully, I wasn't like burned. Like I didn't burn me toward God or toward the faith in general. But we definitely kind of left that stream of religious teaching, if you will.
Yeah, I think about people who have these backgrounds in the church, myself included, and somehow that you get this break or this breach from kind of the church of your origin story. I always say, I don't know anybody whose faith I genuinely respect who still goes to the same church their parents raised them in. Do you know what I mean? Like people whose faith is, that I regard, they have left their origin church, and they've found a new expression, one that is maybe more aligned with their actual, vision of maturity and thought and growth. So it sounds like you guys have made that journey at some level.
Yeah. And I mean, I think when I look back at the church that we were raised in, like I think the older that I've gotten, the more I have appreciated the foundation that they laid. But I think it can be very, very hard when, like, my mom was great. Like, my mom taught me how to read the Bible myself. And I think if I didn't have that, I would have easily gotten caught up in somebody else's teaching and philosophy of how my life should be. But as I grew up and needed God more, I started to rely on him more, not the church per se, but him more. And that kind of led us to where we are today. And I think that faith is ever evolving. I tell my kids this, we've got 4 kids, ages 26 to 16. And
26 is the one that you got pregnant with is 17?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the way that we were kind of raised was like, you're going to believe this because this is what we say. And we've not done that to our kids. We don't force our children to believe what we believe. They all go to church and they all love God, but we've just decided to parent very differently than what we were exposed to.
Well, and if you buy the theory, right, my little observable theory just in my own life, in order for our kids to have their own faith, they have to leave ours.
Absolutely.
Right? Like at some point they have to go, yeah, no, I don't know, mom and dad, if I'm going to kind of do your thing, I'm going to go find my own thing. And that's hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. But mine had enough of my church by the time they were both in middle school. So I'm still waiting for them to figure out what it is, but aren't we all, right? We're all trying to figure out how to make sense of this whole thing.
But I will tell you, Zach, our 26-year-old, for a while, he was kind of like out there. He's super successful in real estate. He's doing his thing. And he was kind of out there just living his life. He didn't he wouldn't say that he had left the faith totally, but he wasn't going to church. There wasn't anything from his life that would have mimicked, the home that he was raised in. And just recently, over the past year and a half, he has come I wouldn't even say back to faith. I will say that he has had a revival of his own faith. So he goes to a different church. And like, this is even a different church than like what we grew up in. But the church that he grew up in, to your point, he goes to a different church.
Yeah,
and he's got a whole different faith community. And it's been incredible to watch. And again, we're not like beholden to our church. So it's not like, oh, you have to come to our church and you have to do. No, I'm just excited that he is on this journey for himself. And so it's really encouraging to see that after years of what looked like, man, I don't know if he's ever going to turn around, to see like the change in him. It's been pretty remarkable.
Yeah. You said you've been together 26 years. Is that the number or he's 26? You've been together a little bit longer than that, perhaps?
Yeah. What's it, 30?
We started dating in 1996. So it's coming up on 30 years of dating. And then we'll celebrate 27 years of marriage in 2026.
All right. So what's the secret?
Listen. What's the secret, Sean?
Just listen to everything you say.
No.
Really, I think what has worked for us is getting outside of ourselves and also getting to know ourselves. For me, it was getting in therapy and understanding who I am and not focusing on who Dana was. I was like, who am I? I need to understand who I am first. Once I understand who I am, then I can try to understand who she is. But if I don't even know who I am, how can I know who she is and understand, if I don't know what makes me tick, how do I look trying to figure out what makes you tick? So once I got some deep therapy, understood who I was able to sit back and then, and understand Dana and talk and have conversations where I couldn't do that before. So, I mean, that really helped me and helped us. And also I'm like, it's not about me. And I really try, how can I make her happy? If I'm trying to make her happy, I'm not thinking about what's going on with me, not putting myself first or so.
Yeah. I think for me, I don't have any other answer to say other than like, I feel like God rescued us. Like we did some stuff. Yes. We went to counseling. We had to like lay down pride and selfishness and like kind of that deep work. But I know for sure we have matching tattoos of Ecclesiastes, the scripture that says that a triple braided cord cannot be easily broken. And I know for sure, like if I was telling someone today, I was like, I just don't know where I would be if God had not entered, and not only just entered into my marriage, but like I see him as a presence, like as a real presence. And so through that, getting rid of selfishness, which is like, these are the things that like people don't want to hear, but it's the truth is that like we are inherently selfish people and we want what we want. And being married forces you to consider somebody else. And, it's hard. You're like, what's the secret? The secret is staying in there. And of course, I don't ever advocate someone staying in an abusive marriage or anything like that, or habitually unfaithful marriage or, an abandoned, nothing like that. But I think staying in there when it's easier to walk away, we've had many opportunities to walk away, many. And I think there's a little bit of stubbornness in both of us that's like, I'm not gonna give up. Like, we're gonna figure this thing out. And we're just gonna, and also because we were both raised by single parents, his mom remarried at 11. My mom remarried when I was 3, but it was just, that's a whole nother podcast, Zach. But right on. But we didn't want to replicate that. Like it was very important for us, not only that we stay married for the kids' sake. That's not what we're doing here, but that our marriage would be a template, a blueprint that our kids would genuinely say, like, if I get married, which they don't have to get married, that's not the thing. But like, if I get married, I would like my marriage to be like my parents. And I think that like greater vision has like helped us to stay together when things have been really hard.
Man, I feel you. I'm with you on that. And this episode will come out, I think, right before Christmas. So maybe there's something serendipitous about the idea of, the role that God plays in the world. We had a world that the baby Jesus wasn't a part of, and then all of a sudden here he comes. And then here's a marriage and marriages who are trying to figure out how to make it work. And I know plenty of people who believe that God is essential to that, and some people who don't believe in God at all. But you have this notion of God is part of this. How do you feel that or experience that or name that on just like a daily basis or on a regular basis? If there's a cord of three strands, like how do you recognize that third strand in your life on the daily basis?
Yeah, it's such an
not even daily,
question.
but just like and I don't mean daily. I don't mean like, where is God daily for you? But like, how do you name that for yourself in this context that you're describing?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. You want to answer? Or
I mean, the things we've been through, the way where we started to where we are now, we couldn't do that by ourselves. We definitely could. I mean, having a kid where I didn't have a steady job. I mean, we're in college, going up through the stuff we did, on and off jobs, and the growth from that to where we are as nothing Dana and I could have did by ourselves. So, and considering we grew up in the church and grew up in faith, we know where, God was there with us, and even going back to, I mean, I shouldn't be here, but God had a purpose for my life, because my senior year in high school, I threw everything away. I got in a bad car accident behind drinking. I had lost a full football scholarship. If you would have saw the car, I mean, the car I hit was a parked car. The front seat, I mean, the trunk was into the back seat. The back seat was in the front seat, and the front seat was coming out of that car. And, I crawled out the car and walking down the street. Mm-hmm. By God's grace, nothing came of that. I was able to get off from the case, and I just know that's not something I could do on my own. God had a purpose for my life, and now I'm starting to walk, in that purpose. And I see why I went through all these things back then, so I can have a story for somebody else to have. And, even we went through the struggles in our marriage, because it's not just for us, it's for somebody else that's watching, that we're not really aware, but somebody's watching all our stuff. And hopefully that helps somebody else come out, get through the struggle. So.
Yeah. I think for me, like that's such a great question. Like, how do we see the third strand? I'm a big believer in presence. A lot of people say prayer, but prayer can mean lots of things to lots of different people. And how do you pray? And is it like reciting prayers or whatever? So every morning when I wake up, I just sit in the presence of God. Like it's that simple, in silence. I spend a lot of time in silence and solitude first thing in the morning, trying to hear, and just really trying to stay connected to God. And again, I know that there are people all along the spectrum of faith, so I don't want to prescribe like this is the only way. But for me, this has worked. It keeps me humble. I pray a lot, obviously. So I'm very introspective. So let's say, for example, Sean has done something to upset me, or I feel taken advantage of, whatever. Like it's easy for me to make him an enemy and to be like, but I will I will sit with God and be like, God, what's going on in me? Like, why is that? What's the trigger? Like, what's going on here? And like really involving him, not just like saying some like rote prayer, but like really inviting him in, and also being very aware of my weaknesses. There's a scripture that says that when we are weak, he's strong. And I don't like to be weak. Like that goes against everything in my personality. But
starting in 4th grade.
Right. But it's like when I realize like, oh, dang, like we're all broken people and we are working toward wholeness, that we'll spend the rest of our lives doing that. But like, I don't have to be strong all the time. I don't have to be up all the time. I don't have to have the answers all the time. I don't have to be perfect. I'm never going to be those things. So I can just relax in his presence and say, God, show me, help me to be a wife. Like, I remember one of the I say all the time, like one of the most dangerous prayers that you can ever pray is teach me how to love unconditionally. Like what? Like, don't pray that unless you really mean that, because and I've had to learn, like,
I'm pretty committed to my conditions, aren't you? Like,
oh my gosh. Yeah. Like it's real. But so for me, those are some of the things that have really anchored that third strand in our lives, in my life.
Well, I think, and for people who have a God that they can name or a higher power that they can point to, it's easy to like maybe it's even comforting to personify this thing that's just bigger than us. And if you're gonna make it, you have to believe in something bigger than yourself. You have to believe in something even bigger than us, and that this is about something else. A lot of people locate that in their kids, right? It's about legacy, which sounds like you guys were committed to also, right? We're not going to repeat this generational trauma that has kind of represented our story. We're going to try and replace that with something different. But I think that's really essential to be able to identify, locate, invest in something that's just bigger than me, and bigger than us. And if we can call that God, that's awesome. I have this pet question that I like to ask people who have faith or who have Christian faith anyway, is if you, what do you think is more important, Christmas or Easter?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, for me, it'd be Easter, but it's like you can't have Easter if you don't have Christmas,
Sure.
But I think the resurrection of Jesus, like, that is our life story. It's anything in your life that is dead. If you believe in the story of the gospel of Jesus dying and him being completely like dead, like he wasn't like kind of dead. But for him to rise from that, like, I think for us, that's been a guiding light. Like, your marriage can be dead.
Yeah,
like our marriage was dead. It has died many deaths. But the story of the resurrection for me, I think is more important. I don't know. You might think differently.
I'm gonna say Christmas. I mean,
tell me about Christmas.
Because I mean, the gift was given to us, and so that's why I give all the time, especially on Christmas, gifts, because I was given a gift for Jesus. So he was giving a gift to the world. So
what he's trying to do right now, because we have this running like disagreement in our relationship about his excessive need to give gifts, which is so crazy. Like, some people are like, why are you even upset about that? But I'm very frugal and like I have a budget and the things. And he just goes crazy every Christmas and it causes issues. So he's trying to like spiritualize this. Now. But we're going to go with that. Okay, Christmas.
I dig it though. It's a healthy debate, right? Because Christmas suggests that there is a divine energy, a divine power, a God who was absent and then all of a sudden said to the world, nope, I'm here. I'm part of this whole scene, right? And that that changes everything, right? Like that.
Everything.
No God, and then God is like, oh, there's a thing, right? Not that there was no God. God was plenty of Old Testament present, but then that sets up Easter, of course. And I'm with you. Like, I think people who appreciate that a thing can be dead and then can be more powerful or more, more relevant because it's come back is really, really beautiful thing. And we learned that. We learn that in lots of ways, including the gospel and the resurrection. But, particularly when somebody's coming in here, for example, on the heels of an affair, and they're like, nope, it's broken. It's like, there's no coming back. And then they come back from that. They come back from like, there was a no, and now there's a new yes. That second yes is often way more powerful and secure than the one that was informed by, I don't know, your first yes was informed by your church saying, you got to say yes now. You must say yes, right? Versus you get to say yes knowing what and knowing that you've experienced something like death, that I think that's really powerful. So, but I'm actually probably on the pro Christmas side. I think that the the appearance of God in the world is pretty spectacular, and it changes the whole thing, right? At least it invites us to believe in something bigger than ourselves. So if I were flipping a coin or breaking the tie, I guess I land on Sean's
You
side,
go Christmas. That's fair. It's Christmas time, so we'll go with it.
What do you guys do for Christmas? What's your scene? Do you have special rituals or holidays that you lean into for your family and for your community? Or not holidays, but special rituals that you lean into?
Yeah, so since the kids were little, I mean, they're all old and big. Like, they're big kids. They're young adults, But from the time they were little, on Christmas morning, we would wake them up. Everyone piles on our bed, and we read the story of Luke 2 together. And now, even with these old kids, like 26, 23, 18, like, they still pile on our bed and wait for us to read that Luke 2 story, like,
I love it.
every Christmas day. And so now, our kids they're leaving the house. We only have one at the house now, but they come over early on Christmas, and that just means everything to me. I do the same meal. I've been cooking the same Christmas morning meal. It's like an egg casserole and cinnamon rolls and smoothies I don't know when that started, but it's been like 15 years
Yeah.
of the same thing. And so I love Christmas morning. Like, I'm such a quality time person. So all of that, like, time with the kids and sitting around and it just being like, we can expect kind of the same thing. We don't travel anywhere for Christmas. So we're not going to grandma's house or auntie's house. Like, we pretty much stay home.
Yeah. And for me, I mean, it's because I didn't have that father in my life. It's a time for me just to sit back and just watch everybody enjoy their gifts. You know, I mean, it just makes me feel proud. Like, this is what, that's what I miss, but I enjoy seeing my kids being able to open gifts and being able to appreciate stuff and, just that family time, having them there. So that's why
what do you think that's
it.
about for you? Like, what do you know about your gifts as like your love language? Where does that come from for you? Or what is that about for you?
For me, I mean, from my mom. I mean, she is a giver to the end, to the T. I mean, she's going to give herself to death, and so I've modeled that growing up, and that's how I feel like I'm doing something, like if I see anybody, somebody struggling or something, I just want to help, and if I can help that, it just makes me feel like a wholesome person,
Mm-hmm. Dana, you suggested that maybe your love language is quality time. What do you know about where that comes from for you?
Yeah, I mean, same, upbringing. My mom struggled financially my whole life. And so she didn't really have a lot. She was a school teacher, very well educated, but she just struggled. She was a single mom raising 3 girls. It was a big value for her to send us to Christian school. So like, how do you do that on a teacher's salary? So we didn't have a lot, but I didn't require a lot. Like, I don't know. I had this I just understood like, oh, she's doing her best. And so I just didn't really ask for a lot. So for me, my mom's love language is also quality time. So I loved spending time with my mom. I had a very close relationship with her growing up, as all of my friends did. Like my friends, this is back in the day when we had caller ID, and they would call the house and I would be like, hey, and they'd be like, hey, is your mom there? And I'd be like, what? Like my mom. So my mom, because again, it goes to how you were raised. She was raised in a highly dysfunctional home where nobody could come to their house because it was so full of abuse. So I think she made kind of one of those internal vows. Like, when I have a family, my home is going to be a place where people can gather and people can come. And we always had people in our house. People live with us. She's such a huge quality time person. And so that just kind of became my thing. So experiences mean more to me than gifts. Memories mean everything to me, because I feel like when you die, no one's going to remember the new gadget they got in 2016. They're going to remember the memories that they made with the people they love. So I think that's where my quality time is rooted.
Tell me about your podcast. What are you trying to do as you speak your voice into the world? What's your goal?
Yeah, so my podcast is called Rebuilding Us, and it's literally our story. Sean and I talk a lot about how did we rebuild from the ashes, because I think it's one thing for, like, we didn't just have one affair. Like, we were both unfaithful in our marriage, and it was multiple affairs on Sean's part. And I'm not advocating that people stay in relationships where infidelity is reoccurring. For us, I think, we went through this situation for many years. And if I'm honest, it wasn't because I just wanted to stick it out. Like, honestly, there were times that I wanted to divorce and just couldn't afford one, So it's like, well, okay. I guess we're going to have to figure this out. Did some in-home separations, lots of therapy. And so my goal through the podcast is really to be honest, because I think there's a lot of, especially in the Christian marriage space, where there's a lot of just pat answers and very shallow advice, and people are not really willing to be real. So I share, everyone that listens to my podcast, they know my whole platform is just about authenticity. And my goal is to really encourage people to be honest and real about where they are, wherever they are. Because you can't grow if you're not going to first acknowledge, this is where I'm really at. And so, yeah, I do lots of solo shows, but then I'll have guests come on and we talk about what I feel, what I'm hearing out there. I'm also a marriage coach. So when I'm hearing from couples or even just friends, what are the challenges that people are facing? I really try to think about where was I, especially where was I in the middle of our mess? What did I really need to hear? And that's kind of how I patterned the show.
Right on. And Sean, are you on the show?
Every so often, I make a guest appearance. Yeah. But that's her thing. I like to stay in the background. So,
do you have this is just like a random weird question, but do you have a nickname for Sean that you use on the show? Like, is he like Mr. Muffin or something like that?
No, he's just Sean.
Just Sean. I have a friend who it's a long story, but because of some ways that things went down in her life, her professional life and personal life, her husband got the name the Muffin Man. That's where that came from in my own head. But so when she's talking about things publicly, she's like, yeah, and then the Muffin Man came through and and then asked Muffin Man what he thought and and so it's just a weird. I'm like, I know that there are people who have these characters in their podcast world or in their public life, and they always have these little nicknames or whatever. But
that's brilliant. I didn't think about that. That's a good idea though.
Well, my wife is Rebecca, Sean. And she's just Rebecca. Yeah, Rebecca.
You
is
just
my
talk
wife.
about Rebecca.
Totally, 100%. Yeah. So, and my commitment to her is that she's always the hero of my stories. Like, I never tell a story about Rebecca where she is somehow the villain, even though often enough she is the villain for sure, But
that's not her story.
Listen,
no. Sean is. Everybody knows Sean is the bad guy.
That's not true. It is not true at all. If you listen, I feel like I'm balanced. I do throw myself under the bus a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm just very listen. I throw myself under the bus a lot. I throw him under the bus with me, but I do throw myself.
Do you listen to the podcast, Sean? Do you listen to it?
Do you listen to the podcast, Sean?
Not every single one.
Yeah.
Because the bus has been rolled over me so many times.
Rebecca doesn't listen to it either, so it's okay. You're in good company. You guys.
Oh, don't give him any fodder. Don't give him any fodder.
Look at me. I'm voting for him on the Christmas thing, and I'm telling him he doesn't have to listen to the podcast.
Right.
I have really loved talking to you guys. What is the best way for people to learn more about you or you both, or if they're in Virginia Beach, should they come to your church? Tell me how to point people in your direction.
Yeah, I'm very active online. So Dana Shea, that's DANACHE.com. If people go to danashay.com, they can find all my socials, where I'm speaking, books, all the things. That's just kind of the central hub for everything. And Sean is laced throughout, but he's very much, like he said, he thrives in the background. People are always like, how come he's not and I'm like, because that's just not his personality.
Yeah. Right on.
You'll find me fighting a fire somewhere in Chesapeake. I'm a firefighter, so yeah.
My brother is a lieutenant in Henrico.
Really?
Yeah. So I think that's where he is now. He's in Richmond, Mechanicsville kind of area, but I think he's in the Henrico Fire Department. So, and he just recently became a lieutenant. So, yeah, he was a school teacher for a real long time, and then decided he was done. He didn't want to teach school anymore, so he went back and became a firefighter. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It is awesome. I'm real proud of him. So, listen. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for coming on Marriage Therapy Radio. And I'll wish you and yours the very best as we head into whatever's next.
Thanks so much, Zach.
Yep, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Okay. Thank you to Dana and Sean for joining me and for just stimulating my brain for a little bit. It was really fun to talk to you about your journey, and I had so many more questions that I wanted to ask, particularly as we got into some of the meat of what does it mean to recover and repair, particularly after distressing time in a relationship. Really just honored to share your story, and thanks again for sharing it with me. To the rest of you, again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We're doing a best of episode next year. It's our first ever best of episode, kind of going back through some highlights from this year as we anticipate 2026. And we have some cool things rolling out in 2026 that I'm excited to share with you. But for today, I will thank you for the time and attention you're putting into making your relationship better today than it was yesterday.